Hi, this is Ella from Bad's Fans, and I'm here with the band The Gloom In The Corner. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mikey. I yell at people.
So, when, how, and why did you start the band?
It started technically at the start of 2016, and it originally started off as like an EDM side project because I was doing another band at the time. And eventually it kind of just rolled into like that new metalcore, sworn-in, dark complex kind of style. And I went, shit, I actually need a whole band behind me to do this kind of thing. So yeah, we like to realistically say like halfway through 2016 was when we started putting out songs as like a full band. We've had a lot of lineup changes since then, just because people grow old and they want to get on with their lives, which is so fair. But yeah, that was pretty much when we started.
Why did you guys choose this like specific genre of music?
Well, initially, like we've had a bit of a genre change, I guess, over the years, but I think like initially with like the whole concept story that we have running through all the releases, I think it was at the time when we started off in that new metalcore kind of style, it was a great kind of juxtaposition for how like certain characters were feeling and stuff like that, and like a lot of it was very dark and moody and all that kind of jazz. And then as the band kind of went on, we needed to change things up a bit, and especially with the change of characters and stuff like that, we needed to kind of move with the times and kind of make our own thing. And me growing up with a lot of film and soundtracks and stuff like that was kind of the natural progression, I guess, out of anything else. There also, like, at the time, like, wasn't a lot of bands doing it in the same way that we did. Obviously, we have a lot more bands now that incorporate orchestral elements and stuff like that, but I think that we have a niche way of doing it without trying to sound too arrogant. So yeah, I mean that's primarily why, because it's a big whole concept. It makes more sense for me to kind of look at it from almost like a film or TV kind of scoring aspect as opposed to like traditional songwriting.
You guys have your whole like storyline, so what was like behind it, like the creative process behind it, and what inspired it?
So I used to write as a teenager throughout high school and stuff like that, just short stories and stuff like that. And I eventually adapted one of those storylines into the Gloom storyline that is what it is now. There's a lot of change and everything that's happened since those initial first short stories, but pardon me. That's primarily where like a lot of it came from, but like from a inspiration standpoint, like there's so much stuff. Like over the years it's been like all the noir detective cop kind of stuff, like Max Payne, or like even Die Hard to a certain degree, or The Departed, like that whole kind of thing. A lot of 007, James Bond, and then I kind of wanted to make it a fantastical world, so I incorporated points of like Skullduggery Pleasant, Harry Potter, like that kind of nuanced, kind of more modern fantasy world, Artemis Fowl and stuff like that too. So that's primarily where I guess a lot of the inspiration kind of comes from.
Oh my god.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah. I honestly think it's so cool though, because not a lot of bands keep that storyline anymore, and to see more bands like start to do it recently, I think it's really good that you guys are doing that stuff.
It takes a lot of work to do it. I think there's a reason why like a lot of bands kind of drop off from doing it after a certain amount of releases, and I totally understand why. For me, it's kind of like the whole point of the thing. So if I stop doing the storyline, then there's not really much point in it being Gloom, because I think that's kind of what makes Gloom Gloom. So one day I'll stop.
What song of yours means the most to you, and what's the story behind it?
Ooh. Ooh. That's a hard one. I think there's been a number of them over the years. I think Requiem still hits home pretty hard. Because that was probably the most personal song I think at the time that I had written that was like as close to what I was feeling without putting myself in another character's shoes. And it's about how long story short, it's about how like artists like kill themselves for their art and stuff like that, and it's very on the nose, I guess, for lack of a better term. Shit, what else? On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I guess, one of the new songs, which I'm not allowed to talk about to a certain degree, I kind of just go full pelt, take the piss, which is very much me by nature. For anyone who knows me, I love to joke around and everything like that, and I kind of encapsulated that into a song. Like half of the lyrics is just like piss takes and stuff like that, like making fun of certain things. So I think that one hits pretty close to home, and it's a lot of fun too, because it's probably the most fun song that I've written in a while, from my perspective at least. And yeah, probably Jericho too. I think like because I put a lot of hard work into Jericho and the story, with the short story behind it and everything, it meant a lot to me to kind of get like everything out on the table from various different perspectives, like with the short story, the music video, and the actual song itself. I think that's probably my top 3. I think. You got it?
Yep. What's been your best and worst show?
Get back to me in 10 hours. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Oh, that's a hard one. I think like one of the best shows I think we had was still probably our headliner when we got back from COVID in 2021. It was originally meant to be here at Stay Gold, but because of lockdown caps, it had to get moved to 170 Russell. So that one was pretty sick. There was a lot of injuries. There was a lot of stage diving. We almost got shut down halfway through. We had like a full visualizer background and everything like that. It was really cool. Worst show I've played, I don't know. I feel like, oh, actually no, I do have one. We've been pretty lucky when it comes to shows, in the aspect that even if it's poorly run or whatever, like we still try and find the good things within it and try and have like a good time and all that kind of shit. Probably the worst one that we played was the one that we didn't get to play, and that was in 2017, 2018, I want to say, where we rocked up to this venue in Adelaide, and the grounding for the electricity in the venue wasn't grounded. One of the opening band's amps actually like caught fire and started smoking because it was overloaded from the electricity outlet. I picked up a extension board power socket thing, and I was kind of like a buzz in the room, like a ground hum, and when I picked it up, that humming stopped. I'm like, yeah guys, we're not playing, like we're not doing this, we're just gonna call it. And we tried like getting to the venue across the road because of like this whole situation. We pretty much like shut down the show for like 2 hours, and eventually we moved it out into the beer garden of the same venue. But by that point, like some of our previous members like had to go home for work like the next day because it was on a Sunday. And so we didn't end up playing the show. That was probably the worst one, but even then we still had a lot of fun with it, with whoever stuck behind and remained. So that's probably the worst one.
I feel like so many bands don't actually end up playing some shows, and it kind of like shocks me. Like I didn't think that actually happened. Like like something will go wrong and then the show just doesn't like happen, or like they will miss their set or something, and I'm like, oh my god. There's
been a couple I've seen where like if a laptop goes down, because we're so heavily, a lot of bands nowadays are so heavily reliant on backing tracks that if the laptop goes down, they just can't play a show. We're somewhere in between that. We probably can play about 50% of our set if the laptop goes down. Would it be good? No. But we can still do it. But yeah, there's definitely that kind of thing now. So
how do you keep motivation during slumps, like as a band?
For me, it's mainly writing. I think after Jericho, like I've kind of gotten back into like actually writing to kind of like fill out time and fill out space in between. I'm always trying to like plan ahead with releases and stuff like that too. I work quite a bit too. Like I try and, get as much work done as I can, like as an actual real life job as I can, to kind of fill in the time. Otherwise, like I'm always just trying to take inspiration from things. So like I'll watch movies, play video games, like do this, that, and the other, And I think the boys are pretty much like the same.
How do you prepare for shows, both physically and mentally?
Really depends on the day. I'll generally spend like an hour before our set warming up, like doing stretches, getting my voice ready, all that kind of thing. Make sure I'm not smoking a cigarette like at least 2 hours before the set. If it's really, 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 really cold, like we had in Europe a few times, I'll have like a sip of beer or have a beer to like get blood flowing to the vocal cords, which is an old trick that I got taught. But if it's a day like today where it's 38 degrees or something like that, I'm not touching any drinks or anything like that before the set because it just dries you out. But that's generally it. Like mentally, I'm usually pretty chipper and pretty happy most of the time. So I take it as a privilege that I get to do this kind of thing in front of people. So I'm mentally generally pretty always there. Yeah.
What techniques help you to do like the screamo parts more? Because that's like crazy. Like I'm just like the whole thing behind it.
I do a technique called fry screaming, which some people can do really loudly. I'm not one of those people. My scream volume's actually not that much louder than how loud I'm talking now. And it also kind of doesn't need to be, because if you start putting too much force into it or effort into it, then it can blow you out like real quick. And considering that I have to switch between singing and screaming quite a bit, like I don't really want to push it any harder than that. But yeah, it's a tricky one for sure, and it takes a while to get down. I think it's definitely a lot harder than some of the other screaming techniques that people use. Like just getting that tone and perfecting that tone and everything can be really, really difficult. So,
what differs the metal community to any other music genre community?
I think, for the most part, the metal community is really respectful of each other in like, at least from a crowd perspective. You know, like to put into perspective as a point of differentiation, we had the Travis Scott thing that happened a year ago or a couple of years ago where people literally died at the concert because they were just stepping over each other. You don't really get that all too much at metal. Like if someone goes down, people are generally pretty quick to pick them back up. That's not to say that we don't have our bad eggs or anything like that, but I think there's a much bigger sense of community as opposed to some of the other genres that are floating around, like in hip-hop. There's also, like, if you talk to a jazz nerd, they can be really snobby, whereas a lot of metalheads are just happy to be here, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, like, the fans are much nicer. Like, I feel like you could get into, like, a mosh at, like, a metal concert and you know that you're going to be fine and safe, but then, like, at different concerts, like rap or, like, whatever it is you're going to, like, you don't have that same, like, safety harness there.
Hell no. Especially when security aren't doing their jobs.
Exactly. What's your favourite metal genre?
That's a hard one. I feel like I've got to say metalcore, really, because I've kind of grown up in it for the most part. But metalcore is such like a diverse genre nowadays. Like you have like metalcore that's like Bad Omens or like pop metalcore. Then you also have metalcore like Parkway Drive. Then you also have metalcore, which is like old school Dillinger Escape Plan, like very chaotic, Norma Jean, like all those kind of bands. So that's probably why it's my favorite, because it's such an evolving genre, like it's constantly evolving, and you can put so much under that one umbrella. Whereas I feel like you look at a genre like heavy metal or death metal, it's like, cool, I know exactly what it is I'm getting into. Whereas metalcore, you can pick up one band and it will sound completely different from the next band. So I think that's probably why metalcore is probably my favourite.
Who would you wish to go on tour with? What artist would you wish to go on tour with?
Probably My Chemical Romance. They're like my all-time favourite band. That one would be sick. From a realistic point of view, let's see. I don't know. I'd love to do another tour with like my friends and everything like that. We'd love to do another tour with Cane Hill. Love to do another tour with Vended and the boys in Profiler. I think on a wider stretch, I'd love to go on a tour with a band like Error as well. They've got a little bit more of like a normie metalcore crowd, as much as I hate using that phrase. But again, like their crowds are super respectful and everything like that. Same thing with Polaris. They've got like a huge kind of crowd and they write great music. So probably those two bands, I think, or that number of bands. But aside from that, like I just want to tour with my friends. It's what makes it fun. So
yeah, it would be going on fun going on tour with friends.
Exactly.
Who's your like top artist at the moment?
Am I allowed to say myself?
Yeah.
No, because I'm just re-listening to the new record all the time to nitpick it. But who's my favourite artist at the moment, or who's my top artist? Oh, that was almost a crash. Probably Cane Hill. Cane Hill are definitely up there. I know we just went on tour with them, but I have been listening to that record quite a bit. Still probably Dillinger, still probably Mychem. Probably Devil Wears Prada too. What's a smaller band? Weeping Wound. Shout out to those boys. In Death from the UK as well. I love that band. I think that's probably it.
No, a good lineup of artists.
A good mix.
Exactly. How do you see the metal music community evolving in the future?
It's an interesting one because I feel like it goes through waves. Like, I've been listening to this stuff since I was like 12 or 13 and I'm 27 now, which makes me feel really old. I don't know, like, I feel like we're going to start to get more... I feel like it kind of goes in a circle, right, where we start off with, we'll say Parkway Core, for example, or old school 2000s metalcore, and then we'll get some form of change. Back in like 2008 to 2012, it was kind of like the Rise Core era, so like a lot of synths, so stuff like Attack, Arsene Alexandria, Alisana, like that whole kind of wave. And then it will move into something else, like something more new metal infused or this, that, and the other, and then we've kind of gone down like the pop equivalent now. So I feel like that we've circled back around a little bit with bands like Dying Wish and Wrist Meets Razor and like a lot of bands who are doing that 2000s metalcore sound, but we're also getting like a kind of resurgence of not necessarily like the Rise Core era, but like a pop metalcore era with bands like Bad Omens and artists like Poppy and everything like that. So I kind of see something growing from that, not necessarily like a continuation of that, but more of a branching out, so to speak. Like, there's going to be more stuff infused, like people are going to start experimenting with different genres and different sounds. So I think that's probably the way that's going to go, or at least I hope, because otherwise it's going to get really boring real quick if everyone starts doing one particular sound. But yeah, hopefully I think that's where I hope that's the direction that it's generally kind of going.
Yeah, I can definitely see like the genres mixing. You already see it a lot nowadays, but I feel like more and more people are starting to experiment with it as people get comfortable. Mm-hmm. How do you see the evolution of your sound in the next few years?
We're going straight My Chemical Romance. No, honestly, I think like people are going to hear this and go, oh, God damn it, but we are definitely getting lighter, I think. There does come a point where I kind of want to do as little screaming as possible. I'd rather just sing. Not to say that we won't have heavy songs or anything like that. There still will be like that element of metalcore or heaviness to the songs, but I think we're definitely going down more that old school emo per se, but like My Chemical Romance, Used, like that kind of thing, Fall Out Boy, because that's kind of like what I grew up on, and that's kind of the stuff that I want to be doing. It's fun doing the heavy stuff, but also after a while, like, it takes quite a toll. It's like, how many times can I write a breakdown that's probably been written before, kind of thing. So sorry everybody.
What can we see from you in the future? Anything like upcoming, anything you kind of give a sneak peek to?
We've got the album's almost done. We may be going overseas at some point. Where, I'm not allowed to say, but I can say they just had a change in presidencies recently. That's probably it. It's mainly the album and just like upcoming international tours, I think. That's the main thing that we want to be doing.
Okay, final question. Mm-hmm. Anything to promote or say to fans who are listening?
Thank you for tuning in. Keep streaming Jericho. Stop streaming Witch Hunt. I think that's about it. I'd say come to the show, but that's today. So, yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes to this. It was amazing. I hope the show tonight goes very well.
Thank you.
But thank you for watching. This has been Bad Fans. Bye.